Stephen Sweigart is a dedicated poet and lover of classical music with over 53 years of experience in crafting heartfelt verses. And Stephen is here with us just now. How are you today?
Very well.
With over 53 years of experience writing poetry, what initially drew you to that art form?
Well, I took two courses, my first two courses, my second year in the university at the University of Pennsylvania. The first year I studied psychiatry at Xavier University in Cincinnati, and then I took psychiatry for a couple years at University of Pennsylvania. But I fell in love with poetry, modern poetry, and all of poetry, and I did well. And but what happened is the University of Pennsylvania said I was talented in science, and they didn't want me to change. And I spent a year in working in experimental psychology department, and so I decided I had friends and a landlord that was at Temple, so I went to Temple. I shouldn't have done that. I should have tried to talk to them. I was told by my teacher, but that's how I started. I was interested in Joyce and Pound. They attracted me. And
Yeah.
later I studied Joyce in Finnegan's Wake at Temple, course in that.
In addition to your passion for poetry, you're also concerned with society. So, why are societal issues so important to you? And do they influence your poetry and writing as well?
Yes, my poem Prometheus the Firebringer is very important in that it's an old myth, but it means something today. It has to do with Zeus and Prometheus and man. Those are the three main characters in my drama. Actually, it starts with composer's life of short poems, but then it goes into the drama. And the three main characters are those. And Zeus doesn't want Prometheus to help mankind. And that's the main discussion between Zeus and Prometheus. And this is after he was put on a rock because he gave him fire, but he escaped by Hercules in Prometheus Unbound, which Shelley wrote. I don't hope to do as good as Shelley and Aeschylus, but I make an attempt, and
Yeah.
that's today.
Yeah.
We're mankind is oppressed by Zeus, the powerful, and this is one of my poems, and the other is the Afghan War, and then there's other poems that have to do with that theme.
And why is it that you are drawn to mythology, and why did you want to include that in your poems?
Well, I was in Jason. I went to trip to see my grandparents. They lived my mother's parents lived in Tuscany, in northern Tuscany, near Pietrasanta, where the foundry is, where Jack Lipshiss was. So she got a young sculptress that was a neighbor of mine to get a job there and work there. And so I saw Lipschitz just finished this poem, Bellerophon. I was never interested in mythology, but I became interested in that. I wrote a poem partially on that and my trip back to the States to go to Temple. And that's how I got interested in mythology. And then I read Graves and Edith Hamilton and about Greek and Roman mythology, and that's how I got interested in it.
And you're an atheist and have a belief in science, so how do those beliefs intersect with your interest in mythology?
Well, I also studied at Temple University, a professor in mythology. We didn't study Greek and Roman mythology. I did that on my own. But what we did is learn about the importance of mythology and what it means to life. And I've just put I have an Exist Mankind. It just came out a few days ago, and that was written in the beginning of 2022. It has about scientific creation, and then it has about world mythological creation. But mythology is not make believe. It means something. It means something to human life and a human existence, and that's what I studied at Temple. And that's very important. Besides science, I believe in science, but I believe really in a natural universe, which is similar to God's universe, but it's the natural universe that was developed in the 19th century. I also it has a Native American on the cover.
Yeah.
I wanted looking at the sky, but they did that, which is just as good because the Native Americans have existed through hard times, through very trying times, just like man in Prometheus, the firebringer. And they believe in nature, and so did the Romans believe in nature, and the Greeks, the Roman religion, the early part of the religion believed in nature, and that's what I believe in, the natural universe.
Yeah. Now, nature appears to play a significant role in your worldview. So, do you believe that nature has the power to save us?
I think it does. I write it in some of my tweets that only nature can save us. We just like the climate change. I don't really think it's called. I don't like calling it climate change. I like calling it neglect of nature and not taking care of nature and ignoring nature, and that's essentially what causes climate change, because we ignore nature, which is very powerful, and we live in nature as the Native Americans believe, and we must not, I don't mean worship, but we must honor nature. We can't ignore it. It also helps with laws help to correct this problem.
Classical music as well is another passion of yours. So how does that intersect with your poetry? Because sometimes, do you find they're maybe similar? Maybe they have a kind of rhythm?
Well, I know numerous operas, and that helps me write my poetry because of the form of the operas and the myths and all the different stories. I really like Handel's 30 operas and oratorios. He's my favorite composer. And then I learned something. I hope it reflects on the sound of my poetry, because I continually listen to classical music over the years, and I have a great background. I studied 2 semesters of music history at University of Pennsylvania. I got tired of rock and rock music and folk music, so I decided to take those as elective, and that's how I got interested in classical music. And they studied from the very beginning, from the year 1000 to Stockhausen, and I really thought highly of Stockhausen, and I really follow many 20th and 21st century composers, as well as the classical Mozart, Haydn, Beethoven, Dvorak, etc. So I think it affects, especially the operas, affect my writing because of the stories.
And looking back on your extensive poetic journey, are there any particular works or moments that stand out to you?
Well, my favorite poem, which in Susan Shirako's, I said it wasn't, but it's because, and it's going to come out in the complete form. It's now two books, because when I first started publishing in 2021, after the Prometheus Firebringer in 2017, I did one part of it, the Curse of Prometheus, which is again the Prometheus legend. I've also done the Creatures of Prometheus, another book. But the other 5 parts, the Total Martyrdom poem is my favorite poem. That was written in 1992 and 1994, which was a computer poem. It was my second computer poem in BASIC, which I studied BASIC after Temple at Canham County Community College. But that was stopped. And I'm going to, hopefully in the future, I'm going to learn to be able to translate it to a new language.
Well, what are you working on at the moment? Is there anything that you're excited about that's coming up?
Yeah, I've done on page 36 of a poem called Con Sin, which has to do with the Congress, the House of Representatives and the Senate. What it has to do with is it takes the technique from Jason, my poem Jason which is from Finnegan's Wake, a drama, and is based on things I learned from Finnegan's Wake, the studies, and also the martyrdom, the technique. Although it's very modern, but it deals with the biography of these congressmen and senators. Mostly, I now dealing with those. There was a denouncement of socialism by the Congress and by members of the Congress, and I'm using those who denounce socialism, and I'm using them in it because I really am. I've traveled much in the old socialist countries, and I've studied Marx when I was young and socialism, and I'm not like I'm talking a lot. I consider myself a 21st century Marxist, not like China, but China is a different culture than ours. Our culture is different, and if that comes here, it will be totally different than what China has been around for thousands of years, and we have a much different culture, and it will be like our culture. But I don't, it's probably never going to take place. But I'm not a 19th century Marxist.
Well, where are we able to find all your poems and everything that you'd want us to find?
Well, they're in England. They're on a few places. Wordery has them, and in America, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Books A Million, and many other places. And they're also in Australia on Bookstopia. And a few books are all over the world, but I haven't sold much because I'm not musical. I'm not music, and people don't like to read poetry. When I spend time. But I have a website, and you can buy on Amazon on that, and that's being updated now. You can buy on Amazon.
Excellent. Well, many thanks for talking to us today. It's been great to have you here on the show.
And thanks for letting me talk so much. Thank you very much. You're an excellent person.